So in my last video, we looked at Bang Si-hyuk's 14-hour police questioning and the questions still hanging over HYBE's IPO and how Min Hee-jin's testimony, quote-unquote explosive testimony, was being framed as new evidence. And that was the day of September 15th. Now, just a few days later, on September 19th, something interesting happened. YTN, which is one of the major Korean media agencies, they pushed out not one, not two, but three separate pieces in a single day, all centering on Min Hee-jin's claim that Bang Si-hyuk told her back in 2019 there were no IPO plans. And then later that same afternoon, do I have it? Right here. So later that same afternoon, Sports Today flipped the angle completely, suggesting that Min Hee-jin might have accidentally strengthened HYBE's defense rather than weakening it. Okay, so in this follow-up, let's go through exactly how those stories were reported, why the timing could matter, and what this says about how narratives are being constructed in real time. Let's start here. The first piece by YTN. It was a morning piece released at around 8 a.m. So the first article came out early in the morning under the title I heard it too. 나도 들었다. 방시혁 의혹 겨냥해 입연 민희진. I heard it too. Min Hee-jin speaks out against Bang Si-hyuk's alleged misconduct. Y transcript. YTN transcript. It goes, host. So it's like a transcript of a news video. Host. The trial between HYBE and former Adore CEO Min Hee-jin is ongoing, and now Min Hee-jin has spoken up regarding Chairman Bang's alleged unfair practice. What did she say? Reporter. Min Hee-jin claimed in an interview with the 한겨레 on the very same Monday that Bang Si-hyuk was being investigated, that during her salary negotiations back in January 2019, Bang Si-hyuk told her there are no IPO plans. She added that Bang Si-hyuk suggested incentives in cash are better than stock, and proposed replacing stock options with a cash signing bonus. But contrary to what Min Hee-jin says, she was told HYBE is suspected of already laying the groundwork for a public listing at the time. In fact, HYBE applied for a designated auditor with the Financial Supervisor Service around September-October 2019 and signed the contract in November. Experts note that even to reach that stage, preparations likely began more than a year earlier. HYBE has consistently denied the allegations, insisting that full-fledged IPO preparations only began in early 2020 and that the listing was carried out in compliance with all laws and regulations. Host. That was OG1 of YTN Star. By the way, that designated auditor application, we have talked about this multiple times, right? It was actually, the application was submitted at the request of existing shareholders because they were in their own situations, getting pressure from their limited partners. Anyways, so in this, YTN basically repeats Min Hee-jin's claim. Originally told to 한겨레, this one, that back in 2019, January, Bang Si-hyuk told her there were no IPO plans and suggested that she take a cash signing bonus instead of stock incentives. YTN added that while Bang Si-hyuk supposedly said this, HYBE was already moving forward on IPO preparations later that year, applying for a designated auditor in September and signing the contract in November. And YTN added a quote-unquote expert opinion that such kind of process usually requires at least a year of prior groundwork. YTN also noted that HYBE, for their part, stuck to the line that there were no official IPO plans until early 2020, and that the listing complied with laws and regulations. So in this first YTN piece, basically recycled Min Hee-jin's claim and set the frame for the rest of the day. That the tension between her testimony and HYBE's timeline. Now, here's the second one. By the afternoon, YTN Star ran a second piece, this time labeled Direct Interview. Min Hee-jin, Bang Si-hyuk said, so direct interview, and then they quoted Min Hee-jin in the title. Bang Si-hyuk said that there were no IPO plans, then kept deceiving me. 연봉 협상 때부터 속았다. 날 세운 민희진, 방시혁 의혹 두고 맞불. And here it is. As HYBE chairman Bang Si-hyuk faces police investigation for alleged violations of the Capital Markets Act, a central question has emerged. When did HYBE actually begin preparing for its IPO? HYBE denies wrongdoing, saying the listing complied with laws and regulations. But Min Hee-jin, former Adore CEO, claimed that in January 2019, Bang Si-hyuk told her directly there were no IPO plans. The clash between the two sides has reignited. A HYBE spokesperson told YTN Star on the 19th, September 19th, we cannot confirm whether that specific conversation really took place, but as Min Hee-jin herself said, Big Hit had no IPO plans in January 2019, and we have consistently explained that decisions related to the IPO are only made in early 2020. HYBE maintains that the decision to list was made in early 2020, leading to a successful IPO that October. According to the spokesperson, Min Hee-jin's claim that she was told no IPO plans in January 2019 actually supports HYBE's position. And then the article says, but Min Hee-jin countered the same day in a statement to YTN Star, saying, I brought up that conversation in court not to support HYBE, but to show how HYBE kept changing its story, lying, and twisting the facts to its own advantage. Look who's talking. Sorry, let me get back to the text. My testimony was never meant to back their claims about Bang Si-hyuk. Interesting. The article says, she added, of course, I felt betrayed when HYBE later began IPO preparations and informed its C-level executives. From salary talks onward, I was deceived. First with the claim that there were no IPO plans, and then with broken promises about the first girl group. Here we go again. Unfair put option multipliers in shareholder agreements. Unfair put option multipliers. 13x. Unfair. Oh, gosh. And she goes, and abusive non-compete clauses. Yeah. If you're confused about what she means by that, go check out my video. I will find it and attach a link to that video in the description. Okay. Meanwhile, the article says, police are investigating Bang Si-hyuk on allegations that he reaped roughly 190 billion Korean won in illicit profits, including 30% of the gains from private equity funds that sold HYBE shares after listing. Min Hee-jin is currently locked in legal disputes with HYBE over shareholder agreements and a put option lawsuit she filed against the company. So that was the second piece. So here, the framing sharpened. Instead of simply reporting Min Hee-jin's claim, the article cast it as an ongoing battle. HYBE versus Min Hee-jin, each side accusing the other of lying or shifting stories. And HYBE's spokesperson, so they did, interview or get a quote from HYBE's spokesperson, who told YTN, quote, whether that conversation actually happened or not. Big Hit had no IPO plans in January 2019. Decisions were only made in early 2020. And the spokesperson even implied that Min Hee-jin's claim could support their position, because if Bang Si-hyuk really said no IPO plans in January 2019, that would align with HYBE's official timeline. But then, YTN included Min Hee-jin's quote as well, because Min Hee-jin immediately countered. She told YTN she raised the 2019 conversation in court not to support HYBE. Of course, she wouldn't support HYBE. Not to support HYBE, but to show that HYBE had kept changing the story and twisting the facts. And she escalated further, saying she felt betrayed once she realized C-level executives were later informed about IPO preparations, and claiming that from salary talks onward, Bang Si-hyuk misled her repeatedly. Not just about IPO, but also about the first girl group, put option multipliers, and non-compete clauses. And yeah, I have also covered extensively about that, what happened before Adore was formed, especially the, exclusive article that Dispatch put out, how the story of how Min Hee-jin stole New Jeans members as trainees from Source Music, quote unquote, stole. So go check it out if you are interested. So the second YTN piece wasn't just about the IPO. It became part of Min Hee-jin's larger narrative that she had been systematically deceived. Now, barely 15 minutes later, YTN published a third version. Here's the title. 나도 들었다. 방시혁 의혹 겨냥에 임연 민희진 tricked from the salary. 민희진 pushes back against Bang Si-hyuk allegations with a quote, I heard it too. Okay, so here it is. As HYBE chairman Bang Si-hyuk undergoes police questioning for alleged violations of the Capital Markets Act, the timing of HYBE's IPO preparations has become a key issue. HYBE continues to deny the allegations, saying the IPO was done legally, but Min Hee-jin claimed that Bang Si-hyuk told her in January 2019 there were no IPO plans, reigniting the clash. All right, I think basically, this is basically the broadcast recap of the quote-unquote interview, recycling the same points with slightly punchier headlines and stuff. So within one day, and yeah, it was a reporter OG1 with audio AI anchor. So it's a AI audio recap of the interview that I just read you. Okay, so within one day, YTN gave Min Hee-jin 3 separate platforms to repeat her story. First, in a transcript style report, then in a direct, quote-unquote direct interview, and finally in a video news recap. And for a single outlet to push out 3 pieces in less than 9 hours shows just how aggressively they were amplifying her side of the narrative. But then, late in the afternoon, Sports Today ran a very different take under the headline. Min Hee-jin tried to attack Bang Si-hyuk, but ended up helping him? HYBE, no IPO plans in January 2019. This was released at 5 p.m., around 6 p.m., 5:49 p.m., okay? And let me read you this one by Yoon Hae-young, Sports Today. Former Adore CEO Min Hee-jin recently claimed that when Bang Si-hyuk recruited her in 2019, he told her there were no IPO plans, but some observers argued that this statement actually supports Bang Si-hyuk's defense. In a recent interview with the 한겨레, Min Hee-jin said, when I met Bang Si-hyuk in January 2019 for salary negotiations, he told me there were no IPO plans. He added, cash incentives are better than stock. Let's replace stock options with the cash signing bonus. Hindsight bias, anybody? Yeah, I mean, let's read the article first. I trusted his words and signed the contract. She repeated the same claim during her put option lawsuit against HYBE at the Seoul-centric district court on September 11th. HYBE, however, maintains that there were no IPO plans in 2019. I feel like I'm reading this phrase like 10 times already. Sorry. All right. HYBE, however, maintains that there were no IPO plans in 2019, and decisions about the listing were only made in early 2020. In that sense, Min Hee-jin claimed that Bang Si-hyuk told her there were no plans in January 2019, aligns with HYBE's long-standing explanation. Investigators suspect Bang Si-hyuk secretly prepared IPO plans in 2018 to 2019 while misleading shareholders into selling their stakes to a private equity fund set up by an associate, later pocketing a share of the profits. But Bang Si-hyuk insists that in January 2019, here we go again, Bang Si-hyuk was not even considering an IPO. Yeah, because their priority was getting a direct investment from 손정희's Vision Fund, SoftBank Vision Fund, right? But that didn't work out. So they had to consider alternative options. Now, thus, the article says, some observers believe Min Hee-jin's testimony may have inadvertently reinforced HYBE's defense. HYBE continues to stress, we repeatedly made clear that there were no IPO plans in 2019 and that the listing outlook was uncertain. Yeah, just hammering again and again, no IPO plans in 2019. And by now, I have memorized that phrase. It will appear in my dreams tonight. All right, back. And the article ends with this. One industry insider remarked, Min Hee-jin's statement ended up supporting Bang Si-hyuk's testimony and HYBE's position. In trying to attack him, she may have actually helped him. Yeah, so this piece argued that Min Hee-jin's testimony might actually backfire. Why? Because If she's correct that Bang Si-hyuk told her no IPO plans in January 2019, that lines up almost perfectly with HYBE's consistent claim that the IPO decision only came in early 2020. So, in other words, instead of undermining Bang Si-hyuk, her own words could be, read as confirming his defense. And Sports Today even quoted insiders suggesting that her statement unintentionally supported HYBE's position. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, that's a pretty interesting reversal, striking reversal, especially because it came just hours after YTN's triple coverage, painting Min Hee-jin as a deceived insider. So what do we make of this? I mean, first, the fact that YTN ran, again, 3 separate pieces in one day shows the media's hunger for drama. And their willingness to recycle the same claim with different packaging, so to say, to maximize clicks and airtime. And second, Sports Today's framing shows how quickly a narrative can flip. Like the exact same quote, no IPO plans, can be spun as evidence of deception or as proof that HYBE's story is consistent. And also, this sequence highlights the risk of, exclusive testimonies. Like when outlets report one side's, word, one person's word as breaking news without strong verification, it leaves plenty of room for others to reinterpret that claim in the opposite direction. And lastly, it highlights how fluid the narrative could change. Like in the morning, Min Hee-jin's words looked like a bombshell against Bang Si-hyuk from some people's perspectives. But by evening, another outlet was saying she might have accidentally handed him a lifeline. And I'm pretty sure Min Hee-jin was infuriated reading this headline and reading this article, if she read it. So here's what I would like to hear from you. When you see one outlet amplify a single person's claim across multiple formats in a single day, do you take it as serious reporting or as narrative construction? Or do you think Min Hee-jin's testimony strengthens her case against HYBE, or could it actually end up helping Bang Si-hyuk's defense? And more broadly, when 2 outlets spin the exact same words in completely opposite ways, how do you decide which reading to trust? So let me know your thoughts by writing in the comment section. Now, let's actually... do I have this? Let's see. Okay, right here. And before we wrap up, let me read you this one. So, on September 18th, the day before all these stories broke, at least 10 different articles, Korean media articles, appeared about Min Hee-jin's Instagram post. Instagram story, maybe? I haven't checked. And it was just a mirror selfie, captioned "thanks," and the press framed it as a soft comeback to the spotlight, showing netizen comments that she looked strong or was expressing herself silently. So here are all the articles that were released on the same day, and it goes. Let me briefly read. Min Hee-jin, former Adore CEO Min Hee-jin. The title: Min Hee-jin in middle of HYBE dispute shares surprise update. Thanks. Former Adore CEO Min Hee-jin, who has drawn public attention for her legal battle with HYBE, has shared a personal update for the first time in a while. On September 18th, Min Hee-jin posted a mirror selfie on her Instagram with the caption, "Thanks," wearing a cap and casual clothes. She offered a small glimpse of her current life. Not that we care, but sorry, back to the text. Previously, Min Hee-jin had been in the spotlight for legal disputes and public remarks amid the conflict over Adore's management rights. But after a recent period of relative silence, this social media post once again signaled her presence. Online commenters reacted with remarks such as, "She still looks strong," and "It feels like she's showing the situation through a photo rather than words." Again, like I told you, the Korean media does this a lot, just quoting random netizen comments without screenshots, so we don't know whether people actually wrote these comments or not. Anyways, that's the quote unquote quotes that this article pulled out. And then it ends. Currently, Min Hee-jin is engaged in lawsuits with HYBE, including a shareholder agreement, termination case, and a put option claim. On September 11th, she appeared at the Seoul Central District Court for direct questioning. Now, if you look at the actual comments under these articles, the tone is completely different compared to what the article claims the netizens are saying. So the top voted responses are very critical. This one, only New Jeans ended up screwed over. And the second one, she could have had 100 billion won just staying put, or through a put option. What was the point of dragging the kids into this? 애들 꼬셔서 뭐 한 거냐? And then third one, most voted comment. She looks way too carefree for everything going on. And there were other comments like she abandoned the kids and is just out there enjoying herself. Give New Jeans back, you 아줌마. She ruined New Jeans. God will judge her. Stop causing trouble. Disgusting, money-crazed people. People like her are so annoying. They stir up chaos, then later ditch everyone and just flaunt their own life with selfies. She devoured New Jeans, that woman. If you think of yourself as New Jeans' real mom, then advise them to go back to adore. They're young with a bright future. What are you doing to them? She sounds like her head is floating in space. Weird way of talking. Weird mindset. In the end, New Jeans are the ones left damaged. And reading these, I thought that this really captures perhaps a portion of the general public and some, genuine New Jeans fans. Because those who are, who've been following the case closely and very critical of not only Min Hee-jin, but also New Jeans, they oppose to the idea of New Jeans going back to HYBE for various reasons. But some of these people, netizens, are saying that if you really think of yourself as New Jeans' real mom, then advise them to go back to adore. And then I saw comments, give New Jeans back, you 아줌마. So there you go. I think that really, might have come from either the general public or genuine New Jeans fans who are critical of Min Hee-jin. So yeah, what stands out here is a gap between the article's tone and the audience reaction. Like the news piece treated Min Hee-jin's Instagram selfie as a light celebrity update, like highlighting neutral or even sympathetic netizens' responses, like she still looks strong. 여전히 굳건해 보인다. But the most upvoted comments tell a very different story. And the overwhelming theme in the top comments is anger. Not just at, Min Hee-jin personally, but at what people see as her abandonment of New Jeans. Like phrases like, only New Jeans got screwed over. New Jeans만 해됨. Or she dragged the kids into this. Or give New Jeans back. Frame her not as a victim standing firm, but as someone responsible for collateral damage. And there's also a tone of disbelief or frustration. Commenters point to her casual selfie and caption, thanks. I don't know what she's thinking about or thanking for, as evidence that she's too detached or flippant, given the scale of the legal fight and the group's uncertain future. And some people frame her as selfish, enjoying her own life while leaving the group in limbo. But I'm pretty sure she posted this Instagram photo for a specific reason in her mind, whatever they may be. And this divergence, highlights two things. First, the media continues to cover even trivial updates from Min Hee-jin with heavy visibility, as though any move she makes is inherently newsworthy. And second, the public mood, at least judging by the most upvoted comments in a specific article, is increasingly critical. And the gap between press narrative and comment section narrative is widening, which suggests fatigue for sure, and frustration with how much attention she commands while New Jeans' future remains unsettled. And that leaves us wondering, whose version do you trust more? The media's sympathetic angle or the reader's raw reactions? Let me know all your thoughts by writing in the comments. As always, let's stay positive, respectful, and classy. Thank you guys. Peace and love. Bye-bye.